Video game art styles. It's what you see when you're playing a video game. There's many common art directions for video games like pixel art, cartoon, and the more hyper-realistic stuff. It didn't always used to be like this, however. Throughout the 20th century, games generally all looked the same due to hardware limitations, but now that developers can make a game look however they want, we've gotten some incredibly original looking games. So today, I'm going to be going over my top 10 favorite games when it comes to their art style. I've never really talked about this sort of thing on the channel, so I'm excited. So before we begin, it's worth mentioning what kind of tastes I have when it comes to art styles. I generally like when video games give me an art style that I can't find anywhere else. So in other words, the really unique stuff is my favorite. I still love games like Red Dead Redemption 2 and God of War, but I think it's generally better for video games to give you graphics that really highlight the creativity of the medium. Also, one more thing, I announced earlier this month that I am now posting free to use gameplay footage on my second channel, so if you're trying to make a name for yourself on this platform but you don't have the gameplay footage to do so, consider checking it out. Anyway, shameless self-promo out of the way, let's jump right in. Kicking off the list at number 10, I went with Animal Well, with its impressive recreation of an Atari aesthetic. I've never played an Atari game before, but I do know a bit about the games, at least enough to know that Animal Well does an amazing job at recapturing the magic of these insanely oversimplified objects. The game even has scan lines to mimic an older television, which you can actually turn off if it irritates your eyes. Either that or if you just prefer how the art style looks without them on, because it actually looks pretty different. I know nowadays so many games go for pixelated graphics and it can get a bit stale, but I think this game does a good enough job at being different to where it feels like an experience you couldn't really get from other games. It's pretty nice, not my absolute favorite or anything, but it's definitely super good. Next up at number 9 is Sea of Stars, an indie JRPG that combines Super Nintendo models with modern lighting physics. And once again, I know this art style can get repetitive, but I just love how all the different colors blend in this game. Everything looks so insanely vibrant. I mean, I guess it helps the characters already have bioluminescent powers, but yeah. The amazing lighting is the main thing here, but the pixel art itself is worth mentioning too. The graphics of this game is one of the highlights of the experience. At number 8, I chose Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Man, we really did need a game like this when it came out last year, and the reason is, it had literally been like 17 years since we got a 2D Mario game with a unique graphical style. Because ever since New Super Mario Bros. On the Nintendo DS, every other 2D game just copied its visuals, and Mario Wonder was the breath of fresh air that we deserved. It's honestly the best art direction we've ever gotten from a 2D Mario platformer. I guess this game would fall under the hand-drawn cartoon style of things. All the areas of the map not only look so different, but they're original too. All of these areas are new and exclusive to this game. Yet again, another thing this Mario game did so much better, originality. But yeah, the art style has got to be the best thing about this game. At number 7, I chose The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. This is a game that nowadays everyone points to when someone asks them what one of their favorite gaming art styles is, but it didn't always used to be that way, because as you most likely know, this was the most controversial Zelda game ever when it was revealed, and you can't really blame the fans for this. They just came off of the two most mature games in the franchise thus far. Then they watch as Nintendo reveals that for their new, very powerful Nintendo GameCube system, this is the new art style they were getting. But hey, at least we got Twilight Princess afterwards, so we can officially appreciate both games and their graphics. But overall, I think The Wind Waker has definitely aged better in terms of its art direction, so I'll give it the edge. At number 6, I went with Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Now, if you would have asked me, let's say a year ago, I might have told you that it's my favorite art style in gaming, but since then, I've played quite a lot of other games, and because of that, I have to bump it down to number 6. It's still amazing though. It's one of the most beautiful looking games in the history of gaming. I think one of the problems you could have with it is sometimes it can be a bit blurry, but if you're like me and you love nature, it's going to be one of the most satisfying games to experience. At number 5, I went with Donkey Kong Country 2. I'm not sure if this is a hot take, but I think this game's graphics and overall style has aged amazingly. Now yes, I know I could have included all 3 Donkey Kong Country games from the Super Nintendo because they all technically have the same art style. However, I wanted to choose one out of the 3, so I went with DKC 2 because I prefer the environments of this game. I love the early 3D model aesthetic for the characters and enemies. I also love the backdrop of some of the areas, like the Bramble Scramble area, and those levels that take place inside the hornet nests are amazing looking too. Also, this is really the only Donkey Kong game out there where both of the playable characters are similar sizes, which I know isn't really worth caring about, but I just think they fit together the best. At number 4, I'm gonna go with Yoshi's Woolly World. This game flies under the radar for some people because it didn't get amazing reviews and it also released on the Wii U. So yeah, but there's one thing we can all agree on, and that's the art style of this game being absolutely amazing. Although my mom did say this game looks like something my grandma would like, but hey, I'm taking that as a compliment. Instead of throwing eggs, Yoshi eats enemies and they turn into yarn instead, which if you think about it is kinda dark. I mean, you're basically twisting up their organs. But the woolly setting is perfect for a Yoshi game. But spoiler alert, this won't be the last Yoshi game featured today. At number 3, I chose Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight, like the Ori games, is completely hand-drawn and it looks gorgeous. However, this game goes for a darker side of nature, which I usually don't love, but in this case, the graphics are too great that I have no choice. People always say that art is subjective, which in some ways is true, but this specific art style is so incredibly well done for this type of game and the type of gameplay movements you need to accomplish that I almost want to say it's an objectively perfect video game art style. And when you combine that with its uniqueness, you get something truly unstoppable. I just love that indie developers have been giving us so many different art style types, especially with AAA devs rarely moving away from realism. Also, just look at the City of Tears area, man. Combined with the cave setting, the Baroque city setting, and the rain signifying tears, it's one of the coolest looking areas in gaming history. At number 2, I chose Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. Out of the Super Nintendo games I've played, Yoshi's Island definitely has the most interesting art style out of them all. The general style seems to be almost like a children's color book, which might sound lame, but it makes sense if you remember the plot of the game. Yoshi is basically babysitting the whole time, so yeah, even though I said most 20th century games look mostly the same, this game's definitely an exception. The reason I like it better than Woolly World is because I just prefer how this game is fully 2D, while Woolly World is 2.5D and as a result doesn't look as natural. So coming in at number 1 on the list, I went with Okami, or I guess Okami HD, which is the version I play. Now this game's art style is cel-shaded and is based on Japanese brush techniques. The game itself is literally all about combining different parts of Japanese culture and mythology, and since I'm a random American making YouTube videos in my bedroom, I can't really speak about what everything means regarding this game. Just like the Wind Waker, this game has barely aged even a second, and I'm gonna be honest, I have never in my life seen a better video game art style than Okami. It combines originality with execution. Not only was the concept of this art style unique from other games, but it's simply beautiful to look at. It is my favorite game in terms of art style and the most unique looking game I've ever seen. But if you think there's a better art style out there, be sure to let me know. I'm always looking for games that look unique, and that was my favorite art styles in gaming. I know it wasn't the longest video I've ever done, but hope you liked it. Let me know what your favorite art styles are. I know there's a lot of other games with phenomenal styles, such as Hi-Fi Rush and Cuphead, so yeah, let me know in the comments.